At long last, it's time for us to watch the most watched video of the past week, anywhere, everywhere. Let's watch it again. The unavoidable video. That's right. They're gluing themselves to the thing. They're gluing themselves to the thing. It's a whole thing. They're gluing themselves.
What is worth more, art or life? Is it worth more than food? Worth more than justice? Are you more concerned about the protection of a painting or the protection of our planet and people? The cost of living crisis is part of the cost of oil crisis. Fuel is unaffordable to millions of cold, hungry families. They can't even afford to heat a tin of soup. What is worth more?
All right. First of all, let's contextualize this, okay? The reason when you're protesting, the reason why you do ostentatious stuff is to draw attention. Has it worked? Yes. The fact of the matter is, the fact that our planet is dying is evident, clear, unavoidable, and objectively correct. The fact that more is not being done about it is a part of a deliberate process of murder, which is being taken, being taken part in by a great many people with varying degrees of responsibility and culpability. But it is murder on an unfathomable scale. The damage that will be done by climate change, it has already and will be done by climate change, exceeds every disaster and catastrophe ever experienced or committed by humans combined. It is incomparably greater than anything else. World War I, World War II, the Holocaust, famines, all that, nothing. It's sit down, lads. It's climate change. It's going to kill more people than all those things put together. So, given that, the underlying logic of this protest, which is, okay, we will do something ostentatious to attract your attention, it worked. Can anyone deny this? Keep in mind, the only point here is to attract attention. So all the people who are like, what does Van Gogh have to do with this? He doesn't. He doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just a famous painting, you know? And the painting's fine, by the way. It's behind glass. The only part of the painting that was damaged was very light discoloration of a portion of the frame. The painting itself is fine. It's the glass pane got ruined. Yes, the glass pane will have to be cleaned. That is true. So, a bunch of people, I mean, they have like really reactionary responses to this. Of course, it's like, wow, blue hair and pronouns. Wow, these look like kids, which, yes, they do have blue hair and pronouns. And yes, they do look like kids. That doesn't make them any less right to say that, our planet is dying. Keep in mind, let's imagine if their protest was capable of getting our nations to address climate change, what attention-seeking behavior do you think would have been justified? If they had dropped a thermonuclear weapon on Paris and thus succeeded in getting nations to take climate change more seriously, that would have been a net good. Massively so. We're talking, when it comes to fighting climate change, we're talking about a degree of potential harm here, to which, if avoided, almost any harm could be justified. Isn't that the plot of Watchmen? Yes, that is the plot of Watchmen. You are completely correct. The idea that overwhelming, unavoidable, apocalyptic death is looming unless a smaller crime is committed. Reading Watchmen when I was young is why I'm such an obnoxious utilitarian today. Anyway, if it did get people to take climate change more seriously, basically anything could be justified morally. Did this really achieve anything, though? Well, this is always the thing that people ask right away. The honest answer is that no. But it might compound. It might not. This individual action can change nothing. The goal is to get the people in our country, in all of our countries, angry enough that they start demanding of our leaders, and I'm using demanding very loosely here, making our leaders take this crisis more seriously. And that can be done in any number of ways. And even if this ends up being a less effective way of getting that message across, the message is valuable. And frankly, you got a better idea? A guy lit himself on fire in front of the Supreme Court building, and what did you see? How much news was made of that? But so these kids throw soup at a piece of glass, and this gets that attention? Wait, what? Yeah. Didn't know that? Self-immolation, Supreme Court building. Look. So people are always like, protest a different way. Think of a different way. Do it better. What? Bright guy? Smart people? What? Do what? You think people haven't been doing this shit for decades? You think people haven't chained themselves to trees or this, that, the other? To all the people in chat who think I haven't read their extremely annoying repeated messages, don't worry, we're getting to you. People have chained themselves to trees. People have crawled up on top of trees so they couldn't be felled without killing the person. People have lived in condemned buildings to keep them from being torn down. People have bombed oil pipelines and sent death threats to executives. People have pleaded with the media to take this more seriously. They've gone on talk shows. They've gone to talk with people on the news. People have done literally everything they can to get others to pay more attention to climate change. So frankly, at this point, throw soup at Van Gogh? Sure. Okay. Yeah, whatever. Okay. You have a better idea, then do it. Now, there are people who are saying this is an op. So here's the deal. The Just Stop Oil activist group that this is a part of, that you know, these people are from, is funded by a fund that was put forward by an oil heiress, if I remember correctly. So this org is being funded with philanthropic money that has been contributed to by a person who is the capital E enemy here. Now, I want to be clear. This does not make it an op. Where do you think philanthropic money comes from? Poor people? If political activists and organizer grants are going to come from any philanthropic source, they're going to come from wealthy people. And personally, I think there's kind of a delicious irony, if it is being done in this fashion, in using the money of an oil heiress to do stuff like this. Now, is it possible that the oil heiress is directly controlling the behavior of this group? As far as I can tell, no. There is no evidence at all of this. Literally none. I cannot find any evidence of a direct controlling force from that heiress to the money that was put forward to be used philanthropically to the organization that is pulling money from that fund. Is it possible that there's some like implicit behind the scenes stuff going on? Sure, but if that was the case, you could throw that accusation at basically any protest group because we can't track all money publicly. So I don't think there's enough evidence to indicate that this is some kind of op. I don't know if I would say it's like an irresponsible claim to make, but it's not one that I feel comfortable making. If that makes any sense. How'd they get the soup then? Can you explain that? We have another lad over here who has a soup-like device. Funded by Big Soup. Damn, his piss is thick.
We will not be stopped by injunctions that are intended to silence protest. We're a non-violent civil disobedience movement. We know that the changes in the laws, the injunctions against us, are irrelevant in comparison with mass starvation, with the genocidal policies that our government is pushing for, with their 100 new fossil fuel licenses in the North Sea.
Again, like, you guys make fun, and all the people in chat right now are making fun, but of course, everything that he's saying is correct. You know, the actual statement here is unimpeachably correct. There's not, you know, not even a, yeah. Anyway, this is the Aston Martin, you know, of course, fancy pants cars. Aston Martin does not produce proletarian vehicles and is therefore an enemy of the revolution. Bosch, don't you think optics are important? People are laughing in the background. That's the problem, okay? Optics are important, but people have tried everything. That's the issue here. This isn't like making a critical argument on a talk show, you know? The optical consideration there is making sure that you're doing stuff that's on message, you know? It's not like he sprayed down the Aston Martin windows with orange paint, then turned to the camera and screamed like the N-word or whatever. You know, he's making his point. But the destructive element of these protests, insofar as they can even be described as destructive, because again, we're literally talking about a glass case that needs to be washed and paint that needs to be scrubbed off the facade of an ultra wealthy car dealership. You know, society will survive. But the destructive elements here are done to attract attention, and attention-seeking behavior will earn you a lot of, you know, skepticism. I mean, keep in mind, this is the lighter end of stuff, okay? Antifa got a ton of shit for, like, lighting a trash bin on fire in Portland and Berkeley, you know? Imagine if this was a real protest group. We're talking about the end of the world here, folks. Again, you could justify a lot if it meant stopping that from happening. You'd have people running around, you know, weather underground bombing, like office buildings and stuff. And if they were coming out with a message that actually got people to change their policies, it would be a net utilitarian benefit. The problem is that nothing works. If you go violent, then you get called a terrorist, and everyone rallies around how you're an evil piece of shit who just actually is using your political position as a way of legitimizing your psychotic, violent impulses. And if you do stuff like this, then it's like, oh, haha, you're a little college student. Haha, look at you, little baby. Ooh, wee, ooh, you know? So what's the solution? Do you got one? Smarty pants chat babies? You got a solution to the world ending, huh? Huh? Do you? Because I don't. Are these two protests like the best way of getting the message across? I don't fucking know. I don't know that. But I'm not going to waste time joining in with the conservatives and the like end of history liberals mocking people who cared enough to actually try something. Even if it wasn't the best thing, trying something is a shitload more than most people, most of you, and me are willing to do. So, you know, whatever. Blue hair pronouns, fuck it up. Throw your soup cans. I don't fucking care. Cringe-ass take. Oh, Furion, cringe-ass take. Why don't you elaborate? How do you suggest we get people's attention turned towards the end of the world that everybody knows is happening and we have unimpeachable scientific evidence for? Again, I'm not saying it's the best solution. I'm just saying nobody knows what the best solution is. We don't know the best way of putting forward this message. The entirety of the internet is laughing at and dunking on these kids. These optics don't work. First of all, I don't necessarily think you can draw a direct parallel between that and how well something works. Martin Luther King Jr. died an unpopular man, right? Overwhelmingly, the white majority in this country thought that his protests were disruptive, unnecessary, and violent. But they still worked, didn't they? There's an underlying value to disruptive social protest that goes beyond its immediate reception. Now, these things are considered essentially unimpeachably good. Not all conservatives feel that way in reality, of course, but broadly speaking, we do celebrate the legacy of Dr. King. And I'm sure that in retrospect, you know, think of the, you know, I can think of other examples. Them hippies that would chain themselves to trees. Do you think the media was kind to them back then? They weren't. But in retrospect, we have like protected forested areas in some parts of the country that we wouldn't have if it weren't for all those damn hippies. Think of tenements and slums where people would sit in dilapidated buildings and sleep in there to keep the city from demolishing them to build like high rises and stuff. Sometimes this does lead to action, but when it's happening on the ground at that time, it gets nothing but mockery. I think at this point, any attention is more attention. We are in such a bad position when it comes to climate change that I would be in favor of literally anything if it keeps the discourse going. Because the worst approach right now is disinterest. The worst thing we can do right now is not even talk about it. Like, let it go undiscussed. Let it be this, you know, passive, innate, oh, whatever, it's happening anyway thing. Like, that's the worst outcome, you know? Even if people being cringy and obnoxious draws negative attention, I would rather that than people get comfortable and complacent. Yeah, early labor movements also. I mean, yeah, early like mining strikes and stuff. Like, not only did the government literally send troops in to have them killed, but they were like attacked. Strikes tend to get like massive denunciation from, we support strikes, don't we? Do you think strikes get treated well by the media? Striking protesters are always treated like, oh, you greedy pieces of shit. Why are you shutting down this industry? Why are you forming a picket line? We don't let, like, we're not going to get an immediately accepting public response for some of the stuff that we need talked about, you know? Labor strikes are good optics today. What? Not, Thana, oftentimes no. Oftentimes labor strikes get a ton of shit. Not in lefty circles, mind, but in broader discourse, you know? Remember the way the news was framing, is still framing the pending labor strike in a US rail, where it's all like, you know, these greedy rail engineers like might shut down and worsen inflation and ruin the economy and stuff, you know? It's always primed against us. It's always, that's the news, not the public. I don't think we can make a fair judge on this off Twitter polling. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. What does this come in? The difference is strikes have immediate material goals, whereas climate change protests don't. Then just die, I guess. I don't know. What is this?
What is worth more?
What is worth more? I'm sorry, man. Listen, some people say it's not a good look to throw soup on a Van Gogh painting and it kind of makes climate activists look bad. But frankly, sounding like that and being British to begin with, also kind of a strike against you. What is worth more? Oh, you got a license for that fossil fuel, yeah?
They do. That's the
What is
problem.
worth more?
True, though. True. True. Vosh, MLK's protests work because sympathetic Democrats were in power. Currently, Tories are in power, and they'll never ever Wait, are you suggesting MLK shouldn't have done his March for Freedom if there weren't sympathetic Democrats? Like, MLK should have, like, if there was, like, one or two fewer, like left-leaning people in Congress, that MLK should have been like, okay, never mind. Like, and you would have been there going like, no, this is cringe, bro. There aren't enough sympathetic Dems, bro. Like, oh, come on. Look, guys, I get the optics thing, but please don't fall into the pitfall of being the like, but the optics people, you know? But the optics people have been ruining discourse for like 200 years. They've been ruining discourse forever. Like every time anything happens, any social change happens, it's like, you know, I don't care. You know what they should do? You know what I hope they do? I hope they find another painting and use another soup can on it. That's what I hope they do. I hope they find another pimply-faced 16-year-old Britbonger and hurl that fucker straight at the next, I don't know, Rembrandt with dual-wielding chunky chicken noodle with the cans off, so that when they get caught in the fucking rope that keeps people away from the painting, the contents fling out at Mach 2 and embed themselves in the goddamn painting. Sorry, I don't mean to get salty about this. It's just like, read up on the history of protesting and trying to draw attention to issues that are like really broad and serious with protesting, and almost universally, like, you have people mocking them at the time and liberals going, the optics, the optics, the optics, and then like change can happen, you know? Like this happens so often. Yeah, Stonewall, right? I agree with queer liberation, but I don't think a riot is a good look. You know, it's always a thing. Why do you hate Van Gogh so much? I like Van Gogh. Vosh, you do know you're abandoning utilitarianism for a thing that looks cool, right? No, okay, Zoth, you're demonstrating a misunderstanding of my position, and I think it's your fault. I'm taking the utilitarian position by citing history as evidence to the fact that if you do this optics frog hand-waving bullshit anytime people publicly dislike civil protesting, you would always be against the protesters. It happens every time, like constantly. like, and the problem is with something like climate change too, like we've tried so many things. People in chat, you guys don't have any fucking idea what a good optics, like, imagine something that simultaneously draws a ton of eyes to climate change, but also gets received well. Can you imagine such a thing? The answer is no, you can't. I think the people who are doing this have accepted the fact that you can go in one of two directions. You can do something that people would find agreeable and popular, or they can do something that'll get attention, and they've decided the attention is more valuable. That's not a non-utilitarian judgment. It's a utilitarian one. Rosa Parks was picked for headlining the civil protests because she maximized optics. These two aren't doing it. Yeah, and the protests that happened anyway were still really unpopular. Are you saying they should have had like 6'2" gigachads throw their cans of soup? Maybe they're saving that for the next one. I didn't realize this would be such a controversial position in my community. Vosh, serious question. When should we care about the optics? What? Does nobody understand what I'm talking about? Vosh, the point is that everyone knows about climate change already and has an opinion. Nobody who's against it will be for it more, and nobody who's for it will be more energized. Then die! Then just die, dude! Fine, okay. Then everyone already has an opinion, and nobody's minds can be changed, and everything's set in stone, and so just die! Wait, oh no. Sorry that in an effort to not fucking die, because they haven't resigned themselves to oblivion the way you have, that they've tried something like throwing a soup can at glass. What a fucking crime. Oh my god. Sorry they haven't wisely, as you have, accepted oblivion, and instead decided to take the great cost of throwing soup can at glass, you know? They should have been smart like you and done nothing because there's no point. Like, come on, guys. We really gonna get this uppity over a fucking soup can? Yeah, they didn't even throw their can. Optics only matter when your point doesn't stand its own. No, guys. Listen. Okay, what's more valuable? A good argument that gets heard by 1,000 people or a perfect one that gets heard by nobody? Tell me right now, chat, from a utilitarian perspective, a good argument that gets heard by 1,000 or a perfect one that gets heard by nobody? The first one, obviously, because the second one has no impact. A man lit himself on fire and burned to death in front of the Supreme Court building, okay? Now we have a situation now where we have to make choices for what we can do and what people will listen to. And if you have like the optics consideration right here, and then the audience consideration right here, and you realize there's an inverse relationship between these two, where the higher one is, the lower the other one goes, where do you draw that line? Because it's pretty easy to get a lot of eyes on what you do if you have a pipe bomb, but people might not like it. And it's pretty easy to deliver a perfect argument in favor of addressing climate change. Obviously, people have been doing it for decades, but nobody's listening. So you have to find the trade-off between these two positions. And those people decided, in their wisdom, that a harmless defacing that doesn't actually matter of a public relic, of a piece of art, would be an effective way of getting a ton of people to listen, which it was. Tens of millions of people have watched those videos. And after they do so, they then have the chance to do their spiel, to give their argument. And what did they do? Well, they did a fine job. They had 30 or so seconds. They talked about how the harm done here is infinitesimal compared to the harm done by climate change, and that should be paid attention to. I agree with those points, you know? They only had so much time to talk, and I think they did a decent decent job with the time they had. So people might not like that the optics are low, but if you want to improve the optics, what do you want to do? What do you want to do, gay boy? Little piss baby? You want to go outside the Louvre and you want to stand there with a sign that says climate change action now and deliver a perfect argument? How many people do you think are going to pay attention to that? Your perfectly optical arguments, your flawless deliveries are worthless if they don't draw attention. This is just a fact of the matter with protesting, and if you don't like that, then you're not mature enough to make decisions on or have opinions on the behavior of other activists. You might disagree with them, but if you can't understand the nature of audience retention versus optics in terms of how you play the media game, if you don't understand that that's a thing that has to be taken into account, then you're not understanding a part of the math here. You're missing a part, you know? It's so easy to sit there and go, I could have made a better case, but who would have listened to you, huh? Nobody. So what you're saying is Fed posting is the most effective form of climate advocacy? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the optical drawbacks you are considering are being weighed against the benefit of drawing a lot of attention. You should still care about optics. Optics just isn't the only factor in the math equation. It's still there. How's your chat this stance? It's liberals. It's not all liberals. It's normally I talk about this like purely as an optical game, but that's usually because I'm evaluating the quality of arguments. But it's not just that. You have to understand the perfect argument heard by no one is worthless in a consequential sense. It's not. So the point is you don't have to look good to bring about good outcomes? Well, no, of course not. You can look horrible and still bring about good outcomes. As long the outcomes are what matter. Um, why couldn't we throw a giant can of soup at an oil rig instead? I know you're joking, but obviously that just wouldn't get as much attention. Vosh, the issue with groups like these is that they block roads and direct their anger at the public, not big companies. What? First of all, blocking you liberal. Blocking roads, that's an unacceptable strategy for protesting now? Oh, direct their anger at the public, not at big companies. You mean them? They were talking about the big companies. They didn't slander the public. That's why you first get people's attention and get them interested so you can deliver better arguments later. Well, that's what they're doing. You draw in attention and then you use that attention to make your case. Imagine, for example, a public court hearing for the person who threw the soup can against the Van Gogh painting, where there's a camera on them where they get to explain why they did what they did, that gets viewed by tens of millions of people, and they have multiple uninterrupted minutes to talk about it. You create these openings for yourself, but you have to do it by drawing attention. PETA used this exact tactic and most people hate them. Yeah, but, okay, Thana, the problem with PETA is that they're retarded. They use, not only do they do stuff that draws bad attention, they then do bad things. The way they draw their attention isn't just by being audacious, it's by being wrong. I'm not saying anything that draws eyes is good. The problem is you need to be audacious to draw in the audience so you have the moment to make the best argument you can. But PETA makes shit arguments and does shit things. And the way they draw their attention is by explicitly making vegans look bad. I don't think it makes climate activists look bad at all that they're willing to deface a glass panel or a Aston Martin dealership. PETA is just like an attention generation machine. I don't think it directs it towards anything meaningful. Yeah, that's the problem with that argument, but consequentially, Vosh, shouldn't more effective ways of actually sabotaging the oil industry be more justified? Then go do it, Max Lotus. Go. Go sabotage the oil industry. Go forth. Mention me when the police pick you up, okay? What do you... Like, wouldn't it be more effective if we just did a proletarian revolution? Sure, but all they had was a soup can and a camera. Would it have made them look bad if they had actually destroyed an original Van Gogh? They already look bad. But that probably... Most people probably think they did destroy the Van Gogh. Most people probably believe that anyway. Are we going to cover the milk dumping protest though? I don't think the milk dumping protest bullshit is as effective. I don't think it's as good at drawing headlines, and I don't think it the problem is that unlike painting a Aston Martin dealership, so first of all, this is for veganism stuff, not for climate change. And second, well, they are related. Second of all, this isn't a strike against a cultural artifact or an economic artifact like Van Gogh or Aston Martin. This is just like going to a grocery store and inconveniencing a bunch of retail workers who already don't get paid enough by dumping milk out. I don't think it's comparable. I think this is far worse, yeah. The Animal Rebellion. This is a different group. I guess point number one, if you're recording your great big protest, is that you probably want to have the microphone a little bit closer to your mouth.
When cows are taken from their mothers, when baby cows are taken from their mothers, when mothers are forcibly impregnated. This is a peaceful protest against the companies and formulated that are taking direct action to pull up dairies. We are not violent.
Every means, other democratic means, they don't work. We've tried voting, we've tried writing petitions.
So we can compare and contrast here. Obviously, I disagree with this far more for a number of reasons. No real argument is being made. It's not as audacious in a way that might like legitimately draw attention. The inconvenience that is being done here is to ordinary retail workers, which everyone can see, and it's very obvious, and it's very like that's my immediate thought. It's just like poor retail workers who have to clean this up. And also I can't hear her arguments, you know? Also, just as like a broader consideration, you're gonna have more luck talking about climate change than about vegan stuff, because everyone is affected by climate change, but not many people are vegans. So you're limiting your audience there in a way that isn't beneficial. I think you can recognize well from the people who did the Stop Oil protest. They had the camera right up there. They threw the soup. They sat down and they immediately did their spiel on the climate change and stuff. Though I will note, somebody in chat noted this earlier, and it's completely correct. You will note though that the media, the dishonest, lying, scumbag, snake, piece of shit, subhuman, contemptible, degenerate media, they did cut off the first clip before these two made their arguments. You notice that? They put the glue in their hand, sit here, and then in this one, almost immediately after, in the second clip, they give their spiel on why they're doing this. The lesson you can learn from this: practice beforehand, give your spiel as you're doing the souping. Literally, 48 million views, 5 million views. That's the lesson we can learn from here. Make sure that the video does not make sense and does not contain the full context and is not as enjoyable to an audience without including parts where you explain why you're doing things. This one that popped didn't even include the message after? Yeah, this one from Disclosed TV literally didn't even include the message. It just said, it lied, said they defiled Van Gogh's sunflowers, didn't mention the glass pane, and then cut out before they have offered the message. See, this is what you have to understand, okay? The people who are in charge, the people who decide what we watch and listen to, are evil. They are reptilians, they're evil, and they hate you, okay? So you have to do everything in your power to make sure that it is impossible for them to not frame you, if not in a good light, then at the very least in an honest one. Just Stop Oil has been messing with oil infrastructure in UK. Oh? Several oil firms secure civil injunctions aimed at stopping climate protests. A number of key operators, include Navigator Thames, ExxonMobil, and Valero, recently gained their injunctions. A number of stopping environmental protests. Register for continue free reading, guys. Hold on. Loading. Need a license. Just click register later. Really? Oh, I'll try later. Oh, never mind, Lamau. I hate news sites more than anything on Earth. It comes as dozens of climate activists were charged after arrests were made at protests at oil depots. Oh! So these guys weren't just souping Van Gogh. They were protesting directly at oil infrastructure. The Just Stop Oil activists say they arrived in the early hours of Friday at the Kingsbury terminal near Tamsworth, Staffordshire, as well as the Navigator Oil Terminal and Thurrock and Gray's Oil Terminal, both in Essex. And whoa, hey, now people are paying attention to this fucking thing. This was back in April. Did you hear about the actual protest they did back in April of this year? No, they didn't. No, you didn't. What got you to pay attention? What got me to pay attention? The other thing, because they have to be done in tandem. Listen to the way the news media is framing it. Energy Minister Greg Hans said, while we value the right to peaceful protest, it's crucial that these do not cause disruption to people's lives. Then what's the point of a protest? That's why I'm pleased to see oil companies taking action to secure injunctions at their sites, working with local police forces to arrest those who break the law and ensure delivery of fuel can continue as normal. These Tory f***s are literally like, you know what? I'm happy these blokes had police called on them, so they can be arrested for stopping the oil. A further 12 people have been charged following the protest, bringing the total to 23. 28 people were arrested on Friday, bringing the total number of arrests since April 1st to 454. 454 people were arrested protesting at these sites between April 1st and April 15th. Did you hear about this? Or did you hear about Soup Can? Now do you understand? This is meaningless if people aren't paying attention. But the optics are good. But nobody sees this unless attention is brought. And no, the optics aren't good. The politicians are still framing this as a bunch of society-disrupting degenerates. Bad optics aren't the solution. Thana, with respect, you're being unusually thick. It's not bad optics. It's attention grabbing. The optics, it's a proportional factor relative to the attention you can draw. This doesn't mean anything if people aren't paying attention to it. I'll show you. Google Trends. It doesn't do anything. Optics are important. It's not bad. Optics have to be considered, but they're not the only factor in the equation. Hold on. Stop oil in United and it's called, what's the full name? Just Stop Oil. It's Just Stop Oil. Just Stop Oil. Right here. July. Right here. April. Right here. And we're going up again. This is still from the past few days. It makes me feel like in a couple days this peak is going to be even higher. Yeah, big April spike. And all this cost was the arrest of hundreds of people, and all this cost was a soup can. This has been big in British land? I'm just looking in the UK. Past 90 days. No, past, Can I not go between 90 days and 12 months? What? I just do. Oh. Back there to July. Going up now again. Checking stop oil. Most would probably drop the just on searching. I wonder if they're being, Now, Van Gogh's not affected by that. Absolutely, Major Tom. Why not? As long as it worked. Try globally since people are seeing this from around the world. Oh, that's actually true. Because this would be more of an international thing, right? Oh, well, close Van Gogh. He's kind of a big deal. Stop. Stop. Thank you. Stop. Whatever. Okay, we need to get rid of Van Gogh. He's too important. Can you leave? Can you? Got it. There we go. Interestingly, for globally, the Just Stop Oil peak right here wasn't in April, it was in March. Did they do something outside the UK at that time? Just Stop Oil. Who is Just Stop Oil, the group that threw soup on Van Gogh's painting? Thank you, NPR, for being better than British media. The climate activists of Just Stop Oil gained visibility since their Friday demonstration, which protesters threw Heinz tomato soup at Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers painting in London's National Gallery. Saturday, the pair were joined in court by another Stop Oil supporter who doused a Scotland Yard sign in yellow paint. Members of the UK-based group had previously gained attention for gluing themselves to painting at art galleries and blocking roads and even racetracks. Damn. The activists say their goal is to ensure the government commits to ending all new licenses and consents for the exploration, development, and production of fossil fuels in the UK. UK government earlier this month opened a new round of licensing for oil and gas exploration in the North Sea off England's east coast. Any. Thanks to a $30 million pledge from the Rockefeller family, 7 from Alien Getty, some liberal org that it has never accomplished anything with the demonstrations, got some Google searches. What is with this attitude? Most of the money comes from the Climate Emergency Fund based in LA, which began with a foundational grant of $500,000 from the Getty Oil heiress Alien Getty, filmmaker Adam McKay, which made a $4 million contribution and joined its board of directors last month. Since the soup incident on Friday, some critics have pointed out that Just Stop Oil accepts donos in cryptocurrency, which has had a reputation for having a devastating impact on the environment. After gluing themselves to the National Gallery wall under the painting on Friday, one of the activists shouted, "What's worth more, art or life? Are you more concerned about the protection of a painting or the protection of our planet?" UK is facing an energy crisis. Here, hold on. We're going to learn today. Tories are evil and will never give a shit about climate change. They only care about money. Yeah, people don't seem to understand that, like, in a just society, throwing a soup can at a painting, if it brought attention to the coming end of the world, would be considered a good and optically beneficial thing. The reason it isn't is because our discourse on climate change is dictated in large part by the ultra-wealthy and the media and the politicians that they own. All the people who benefit from the continued use of fossil fuels have a significant weight on the way in which we talk about this stuff, which means that past a point, you're literally not going to be able to do any kind of meaningful protest that won't be framed as poor optics. What's the point of attention if the optics are bad, no leverage is gained? The attention, because it brings attention to a cause. I still don't get why an oil heiress would fund this org. Well, they fund the Stop Climate Emergency Fund, and probably for tax purposes. Destroying art isn't a way to do activism. This is dumb. First of all, they didn't. And second of all, why? Wait, why not? Destroy you, yeah, destroy all the art in the world. The world is ending. What the do you mean? No! You can't damage a thing we like. It's not that important. It's not like it's the end of the world. Not like Van Gogh would give a shit. Disrupted the British Academy Film Awards back on the 13th of March. Okay. Two supporters tried to disrupt a football match. Vosh liberal arc going crazy? How am I the liberal here? Walked onto a racetrack, the F1 British Grand Prix. Supporters of Just Stop Oil targeted artworks in public galleries in July 2022. Two supporters glued themselves to John Constable's 1821 painting, The Hay Wain, at the National Gallery in London the 4th of July. They covered the painting with a printed illustration that reimagined the Hay Wain as an apocalyptic vision of the future that depicted the climate collapse and what it will do to this landscape. The two people were subsequently arrested by police, and the painting was removed for examination by conservators. A group of supporters glued themselves to a copy of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper painting at the Royal Academy of Arts on the 5th of July. No new oil was spray painted on a wall underneath the painting. On the 26th of August 2022, the group blocked several petrol stations in central London and vandalized pumps. 43 people around London were arrested for vandalism. On the 14th of October, they made a statement with the tomato soup, which we've seen, yes. More than 20 arrests were made. I have no idea what's happening in chat right now. Wait, are people trying to frame, oh no, what if the optics, as the leftist instinct? Vosh the centrist? What is happening? People are just trying to bait you? Yeah, I hope so. Incoherently at that. All right. Well. Hold up, guys. Hold on. This is crazy. We're getting a call into the stream right now. Holy shit, we've got a live video feed. From Pakistan. Okay, I'm getting a message. He's saying climate change isn't that big of a deal. Like, get people's attention if you can, but like, don't spray paint stuff. That would be cringe. Okay, I think I've got it. Oh. Okay. This guy was a highway worker before Pakistan's infrastructure crumbled and all the methods by which people could travel through the country were inundated with destructive flooding. And yeah, he's like, yeah, don't be like cringe or anything. He's telling us that if we keep making well-reasoned arguments, we'll be able to change everyone's minds before it's too late. That liberal civility politics is the best way to move our country towards taking climate change seriously because it's worked so well so far for the past 50 years. Well, then do it more, Barrington. I do have to say the tweets you made earlier on this probably gave some of us the wrong impression. Yeah, because I had my mind changed. You know why? Because you guys right now are live chat posting the change of mind that I had over yesterday. Because when I first saw it, I thought it was like cringe liberal protesting. And then I reflected on the fact that thus far, on the whole our world is ending thing, literally no forms of protest on any point of the attention to good optics scale have been successful. And at this point, right now, my strategy is throw shit at the wall. In this case, literally. Right now, I just think it's disgusting to sit from our like high horse position of not doing anything and judge people who are willing to be arrested for a message that we agree with, you know? Like in a world where for 50 years nothing has worked, people dare to try, and we sit here going, "Oh, that's cringe. I could have done something better. I won't though." And like that's it. So I don't think it's appropriate. That's not the attitude I want to take to it. I do think it's okay to look at this and say what could have been done better, but I'm not going to judge them for it, you know? For the thing that I think they could have done better was start the message before they threw the soup so that it was impossible to clip out entirely. That's my main criticism, I think. Why would that be bad, Shabazz? Just a lone homo sapien taking a stand. That's me.
Warning and wisdom will be silenced and ignored, decides to use their machine to platform it. There it is. Magnificent. Just stop oil. A necessity if life on Earth is to continue.
Oh, I get it. It's like a David Attenborough thing.
In fact, they will have to forage far less if they switch to renewable energy, which is 9 times cheaper.
All right. Oh yeah, I saw this. Yesterday, I attended a conference at which an influential financier shared this unpublished map. Look at it. The estimated death toll is 2 to 3 billion. The time frame is 20 to 30 years, previously 50. Segments of the elite have simply written off large parts of the global south. It's fine. Don't do anything cringe. What does this map mean? It's like what climate change will do. What parts of the world will be uninhabitable. People were saying this would happen in 20 years ago. Major Tom, if you're trying to break the land speed record for being a retard, you're succeeding and doing brilliantly. People have said lots of different things because people is a plural word that contains multiples. When you're talking about billions of humans, you can find humans who have said pretty much anything anywhere. The broader predictive models that scientists have been looking at and refining have been correct. They have been on point. Unironically, bring up Colin Kaepernick taking the knee and conservatives shouting the world was ending. Just Stop Oil protesters spray paint New Scotland Yard. Yeah, I saw this. A woman doused the police headquarters' famous revolving sign in orange paint while the others blocked the road outside. God damn, look at that. Look at that tank. Is this why rich people are buying properties like crazy in the south of Argentina? Wealthy people have invested in like post-climate change properties. Yes. 24 people were arrested outside New Scotland Yard. Earlier this week, the group were slammed on social media after emergency service vehicles were held by their blockade. Oh, I think I remember this. Emergency vehicles blocked by Just Stop Oil protest in West London rush hour. It was the group's 11th consecutive day of disruption in London, and the government has said it will try to toughen up powers to prevent the group from disrupting people's lives. This group is so effective at disruption that it's literally getting the government to crack down on protesters. It's not even true they let the ambulance through. Wait, how the f is this their fault? Video shared by Just Stop Oil appears to show protesters allowing the same fire engine to pass through. Wow. Hey, Sky News, why does the headline say emergency vehicles blocked by Just Stop Oil and the content of the video show them letting the fire engine through? But they blocked in the first place? Yeah, it's a protest! Sky News is owned by Murdoch. Expect bullshit? Yeah, no shit. Oh, it's almost like it's really difficult to cultivate good optics when the media is controlled by people who literally are f***ing oil billionaires. From last week. Was this also Just Stop Oil?
Change is a death sentence to us all.
This mother was arrested during a protest against the UK's handling of the climate emergency and the cost of living crisis.
United Nations have said we should have no new oil. Liz Truss wants to open 130 new oil licenses. That's a death sentence to this planet.
We spoke to Laura Johnson about her climate activism.
So this is remarkably good. I don't know if this is a Just Stop Oil lady or anything, but in this case, the unique thing, the attention grabbing thing, isn't what she's done. It's the fact that she's able to give this spiel while being carried away by police. That's quite, yeah. I saw this. I didn't know it was Just Stop Oil. The point is, you can have good optics, still be disruptive. I'm gonna kill myself. Yes, you can. Me as the world burns around me, flipping through like protesters doing their best. No, not optics. No, no. No. Okay, this one's acceptable. All right, this one gets to go through. Like, dude, holy shit, you're fucking liberals. Stop white moderating the end of the world here. Oh my fucking god. You can critique or whatever, but like some of you are so fucking offended by the Van Gogh souping. Stop. I don't care. Van Gogh is based, all right? If Van Gogh could be resurrected and you were like, hey, yeah, some people defaced your painting, which didn't even happen. If you could tell him, hey, your painting got defaced trying to stop the world from ending, he'd be like, oh, cool, great. The voices are talking to me again. I'm going to go. And then he'll run off and cut off his other ear, okay? If you get engaged in this fucking crazy, like, optics purity testing, you're going to become one of them. You have no place in this channel if you end up in that direction, okay? I refuse to allow... This is the shit that, like, Destiny does with Keffals, where he's like, I'm justifying in my condemnation here because she's a bad activist for trans people. And then it becomes like, you're doing the same hand-wringing that the liberal media is doing, but you're doing it from the sympathetic perspective, you know? Like, you're not anti-protesting climate change and oil and such. You're just, oh, this was a bad iteration, you know? You have to be careful with that. If you believe it could have been done better, I've already said I agree with that, but a lot of people in chat are being like smarmy about it. That's what bothers me. I don't mind believing there's ways of improving the protest, because there always is. I do mind people going like, now that's a good one right there. See, that's how a proper protest should be done, in this like dismissive... Yeah, probably logical pretzels.
Climate activism.
I'm just a mother trying to protect my son. Our children are worth fighting for, and our future is worth fighting for.
On October 1st, UK grassroots campaign Enough is Enough launched a nationwide action for people to stop paying their energy bills. People across the country burned energy bills.
Okay,
Tens of thousands of rail and postal workers went on strike, and climate protesters blocked major bridges in London. The campaign says over 500,000 people have signed up for their movement that's fighting the cost of living crisis caused by over a decade of cuts to public service spending and austerity measures by the Conservative government. A new study
It's like we learned nothing from BLM. Yeah, you guys remember how back when BLM kicked off, there were riots in addition to the protests, and there was arson. And my position was that I don't give a fuck about the riots or the arson because they're an inevitable product of a broader effort to protest injustice. Well, protests that draw like negative attention are a part of a broader effort to protest. If you launch a campaign to protest a thing, you're going to get a lot of shit, and some of your efforts are going to get far more shit than others. And I don't think that we should sort of implicitly empower the conservative or liberal discourse by over fixating on how cringe it is that a pane of glass got souped for a minute. You know, like we can, even if you believed it was broadly ineffective, the most you should say is just like, oh yeah, we can do better. We can find better targets. But I've seen plenty of people in my chat and broadly online, even in my community, who are like, you know, oh, this is a shitty liberal. These people are ops. They're paid by big oil to make climate change protests look bad. And if you're going down that direction, like you've already lost. You're already focused inwards. You're not focused on the goal anymore. You're focused on cultivating, on purity testing, on you know, sort of weakening internally. You have to be careful with that. Yeah. Well, Bublado, my hope would be that they can turn the negative attention into positive attention, you know? Not to mention, like, keep in mind, okay. All right, I'm going to try to throw this one more argument out here, okay? So far, we've talked about the attention versus optics thing, but there's another factor that we're not considering here, okay? Normally, when we make arguments, when I make arguments on stream, the point of my argument is to convince people, right? I want to make a good argument that is convincing so other people can believe what I believe. That's what I try to do, right? So the thing is, when it comes to something like climate change, an earlier chatter who was being very annoying was actually correct, but in the wrong way. They said that everybody's already formed their opinions on this, and that's true. Keep in mind, the point of climate protesting is not to convince people that climate change is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. Everyone already has an opinion on it. And the format of a protest is not good. Think of like the civil rights message. The civil rights protest, like the walk-ins and stuff, the sit-ins. Those weren't about convincing people that black people were equal to white people. It was about demonstrating power and drawing attention, you know? Oftentimes, a protest is just about getting people to talk about something. And in this case, this is very much a any attention is good attention kind of deal. I don't think people who previously believed that climate change is a real problem are now going to disbelieve that thanks to Just Stop Oil Van Gogh soup painting. Likewise, I don't think the opposite is the case. I don't think people who didn't believe it's a serious issue are going to be moved over to our side. What I do think is that the overall level of discourse is rising, and that's good. This is something that we want as much discourse on as possible because any attention drawn to it is favorable to us. The most destructive impulse is disinterest. It's disengagement. It's silence. It was the same with the civil rights protests and with Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter protesters, when they're walking down the street shouting, you know, like, don't shoot or whatever, you know, this isn't an argument to convince people, right? When civil rights protesters were shouting no justice, no peace, did you find that a convincing argument? It literally doesn't have an argument in it. There's no premise. There's no position that's being fronted there. It's literally just a chant. So why do they shout it? They shout it to demonstrate power and draw attention. Convincing people is for the debate stage. Sometimes just getting people to talk about stuff is better. I'm just saying. Already talked about it, Pack Rat Pirate, earlier this segment.
Suggests that over 330,000 excess deaths in the UK between 2012 and 2019 can be attributed to austerity policies.
Direct action has always proved to work in the past. It might not.
Lootings did harm the BLM movement. We may choose not to focus on it, but you shouldn't argue it was a positive element. All I'm arguing, the only position I'm taking, I've already said this. You can critique the soup canning, but stop with this, like, ooh, bad optics, ooh, I didn't like that, ooh, so and so forth, you know. If the most negative thing one should say about that is, you know, good effort, but we can do better, you know? And I don't think you should compare rioting and arson to a planned soup protest.
Be popular at the time, but history tends to look back very favourably. Sick pay, maternity, women's rights, the civil rights movement all came from mass civil disobedience, and that is what we are doing now.
Oh yeah. We have to care about the optics though, chatters, when they remember about the Black Panther Party and what they did. Ooh. Not looking good for them. Oh no. But optics are important. You don't want to draw negative attention to your movement, Virgin, versus the Black Panther Giga Chad. What did they do? Everything.
The group Just Stop Oil initiated the blockades and is calling on the government to stop expanding and subsidising the fossil fuel industry.
We are in a cost of living crisis. Instead of giving taxpayer money to the fossil fuel companies, which make billions and billions in profit, how about we insulate our homes? How about we give free energy to...
There's a saying about breaking omelets here. Breaking eggs, making omelets. No, not optics. Optics are still important. They're just not the only factor.
Old and vulnerable people, and to move away from new oil licensing.
Dozens of people, including Laura, have been arrested during the blockades. The group say they will protest near Parliament every day in October until the UK government halts all new oil and gas licensing.
I am willing to go and participate in the marches, and if I get arrested again, I get arrested again. As a parent, I felt like not only that I needed to join in civil disobedience, but it was my moral duty. I want my son to have a great future. I want all the children of the world to have a great future.
It's okay, we're getting here. 99% of chat will understand soon. Yeah, I can't help but worry if there are people in my chat who, if I could take them back 60 years, would have been like, you know, yeah, the civil rights protests are fine, I guess, but Malcolm X and the Black Panther Party are too radical, and they're actually drawing negative attention to the cause of civil rights. And you guys would have literally white moderated your way through the, you know...
Future. We need to unionise, mobilise, and we need to partake in civil disobedience to secure a livable and safe future for our children.
To let millions and even billions of people die just to protect the profits of the fossil fuel industry, and it's not acceptable.
They glued themselves.
Resort to do this. Petitions, nicely worded letters, legal protests don't work. We have to use non-violent civil resistance. We're up against the power and the vested interests of the fossil fuel companies. They've got the politicians in their pockets. Liz Truss used to work for Shell. She's refusing to tax them while people can't afford to heat their homes or eat. This unelected government has just got into power because they're puppets of...
Yeah, I don't know if the gluing yourself to the street thing would work in the US, because I feel like the cops would just, like, shoot you. Or they would bring out their, like, police-mandated killdozer, and they would just, like, use the giant spiked grate on the front to sort of, like, slough you off the pavement.
They're puppets of free market think tanks who are hell-bent on ripping up all environment.
Yeah, protesters gluing themselves seated to the asphalt? You mean, free speed bumps?
Environmental regulations possible, ripping up workers' rights. All they care about is protecting the interests of the rich and wealthy. They don't care if people die from the climate crisis, and they don't care if people die from poverty. If we don't do anything, millions and even billions of people are going to die, and it's not an exaggeration. The IPCC said that billions of people could be facing unlivable heat and humidity conditions later this century. Vast areas of the planet are going to become uninhabitable. We're very close to passing the 1.5 degree safe mark. If we don't do something urgently and phase out fossil fuels, it's going to be genocide, and our government is complicit in...
This was from a protest organized by Declare Emergency, also a member of the A22 network that Just Stop Oil belongs to. They have a history of terrible optics with stunts that accomplish nothing. Oh no. Their entire goal was for Biden to hold a press conference and declare a climate emergency. These are liberal stunts that, unlike the civil rights movements, don't have real goals. The first link that you gave me doesn't link to anything. I don't see it. Which is unfortunate because I kind of need to see it for your point to be salient. Ban them? They're my mod. No, I need to see the protest that you're referring to, but I disagree that there's like no point to these goals. Drawing attention to this is about the most you can do. Like unfortunately, this isn't something that can be fixed with a simple law. One of the most fundamental like components to a civilization is where it draws its energy from. The process of moving that over to bringing that away from fossil fuels is a massive one. So, I mean, she's being fairly specific, I think. Link fixed. Activists demanding Joe Biden declare a climate emergency, block traffic. I saw this. One agitated driver got physical with him while saying he's on parole and could return to prison if late for his job.
Y'all are so inconsiderate. 495. Yo. Please. We're live streaming right now. Come on, man. One lane. I'm asking one lane before I go to prison, bro. One lane before I go to prison. For President Biden to declare a climate emergency. Hey, come to the lot. Go to jail for what you do. Hey, bro. No, I'm about to get locked up. If I don't have to work, and they locked up. Bro, been for 9 years, and I can't get to work. I've been locked up 9 years, and these people won't let me go to work. I'm not trusting. One lane. I'm chasing regular. One lane. Or it's not people. One lane. No, you're not people. If you commit it, this is not how you change things.
This is an issue with the parole system more than the protest tactic. Well, yeah, of course, obviously. Our parole system is incredibly f***ed. Yeah, I remember seeing this. It's pretty unfortunate. I wonder if you... The problem is, like, if you let one guy through, suddenly everyone's on parole, right? Yeah, I probably should have let him through, though. And see the difficulty there. This is not okay. This crossed the line because it directly hurts regular working class people. Willow T, I am begging you. If we stop protests that hurt regular working class people, and that includes road blocking, then protests are dead. Some of you people have more reactionary positions on freedom to organize than like fucking 1960s conservative politicians. I swear to God. The climate change will also hurt workers. Yes, strikes will hurt workers. Everything hurts workers because workers are everywhere and everyone. Jesus, Chatterby leftist or not? Apparently not. That's what they said about Dr. King at the time. There will always be an excuse. Yeah, we've all seen this comic, but like it's man, I just don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about the guy with the parole either, you know? This is like a sob story about how like providing US arms to Ukraine led to some harm because one of the soldiers who got a gun was like an abuser and hurt his girlfriend with the gun or something. Like that really sucks, but like what are you implying? Like what is the implication there, that the broader action was wrong because of it? We're all going to be dead. You know, I'm just not in a position to weigh like the scales, you know? Now, purely from like an optical perspective, it probably would have been better to let that one guy go. It's kind of like an optics nightmare having your parole guy at the front. I agree they should have. Bosh, these protests are literally counterproductive. Maybe you don't know, no one likes being stuck in traffic. Why? Read a history book, dude. Read up on the Civil War. Perhaps this is my fault because I assume I am the only source of political education for you. Everything you're saying is exactly what every fucking reactionary has said every time anything happens. You're no different. I agree with their cause, but they should stick to less divisive methods. Do you not realize? Do you not understand? It doesn't matter whether these protesters are taken positively. Do you think these protesters think they'll be thought of positively for blocking the road? Do you think that's their interest here? Do you think they're doing this because in their minds they think, oh, the people who are stuck in traffic will like us for this? They're doing it for attention. Bosh, you think only reactionaries are against this? Holy shit, you're down the rabbit hole, my guy. Oh my God. What is happening to my chat? Seriously? You don't think the line is reactionary? These protests are counterproductive because they disrupt traffic. This definitely ain't it. Like that's some kind of like hard line like, oh, we're on board with a proletarian revolution, but blocking traffic to protest the end of the planet? Oh no, that ain't it. Take the L, chief. Bosh, you sound so unsympathetic to the working class. Don't talk about the working class. You don't give a fuck about the working class. The working class is something you invoke because you would rather say the regular people and be the liberal that you are, okay? It's a terminological difference that you engage in for aesthetic purposes. Anyone who could properly use the term working class would never morally condemn a traffic blocking protest because it blocked traffic. Well, it would never even consider it. They couldn't even fathom it because they would instantly remember that basically every single labor and racial and gender civil rights protest that has ever been won has been done doing things that disrupted people, working class people. If you don't disrupt the lives of working class people, you don't attract attention to your protest. That's the fucking point of the protest. Life ain't so easy. You privileged fucks. Oh, my shitty fucking interstate, my I-5 got blocked for a couple hours because people are trying to draw attention to the end of the world. People have places to be. Yeah, you know what? They do. And also the world is ending. Grow up. Grow the fuck up. Your personal gripes with sitting in traffic are so infinitesimally insignificant compared to the stakes at play here. I am not in a position to criticize people who are doing what little we are capable of doing. You are not going to solve this problem just by lobbying or electing better politicians. Do you think your vote is sufficient? Do you think that when you vote in like 2.5 weeks, you'll have done your due diligence so you can smugly sit back in your computer chair and think, oh, well, unlike these guys, I knew what I had to do to change things. I have failed this community if it is so full of people who are so quick to dismiss protests like this based on criteria that would have invalidated almost everything that you selfishly take credit for now. Take out of your mind and mouth every fucking union victory that you've ever felt proud of as a proxy, as a socialist, because they don't belong to you. You would have been protesting against them. You would have been screeching that the union workers were taking away jobs from the common man, that the picket line was keeping hungry people from working. You would have complained that Malcolm X and the Black Panther Party were both disrupting good, honest, innocent racial discourse and worsening things and making things harder for everyone. You would have been the white moderate because you still are one, and it only would have been worse back then. Do not waste my time with your limp-ass fucking arguments, okay? If you have a problem with how these protests are conducted, fine, but the ways in which you guys express your criticisms are fundamentally reactionary. Well, not all of you, I mean, obviously not all of you, but some of the ways in which you guys do. God fucking help us. Ban them? I'm not banning anyone. All they had to do was open one lane and they'd still be disrupting traffic, protesting and not f***ing over the working class. Okay, I take it back. We're banning this guy. I take it back. My principle's evaporating when I see that retard. Jesus Christ. Traffic blocking is anti-proletarian. Just do one lane. It's the end of the world. One lane. People got places to be. It's the end of the world. Half the chat is saying shit my stepdad who worked for Raytheon said about BLM marches. Yeah, no, Can the Astronomer, I know. There are a lot of people in chat right now who think they're progressive because when everything's nice and safe and convenient and hypothetical, they agree with the progressive positions. But real progressives don't fold when the stakes raise slightly. Real progressives stick around because at the end of the day, nothing changes unless the stakes raise. You know, being hypothetically, theoretically in favor of you know, progressive action is worthless. NIMBY's in chat, yeah. Is it anti-progressive to have an informed opinion? Don Mako Umaneko, f*** off. Legit, f*** off. I refuted your points. Is it reactionary of me to be right and correct? Yes, it is, actually. This is an anti-empiricist channel now. Vosh, I'm so happy you're taking this position. I don't even think my position on this is particularly radical. The position that I'm putting forward right now would have been the one adopted by sympathetic white liberals during the civil rights protests, or like an average worker during the union strikes in the early 20th. This isn't even radical leftism. This is just basic, like, stick with the progressive causes shit. Liberals can be on board with this. They tend to be more tetchy, as demonstrated by chat, but they can be. Thank you, Spawn. I am sympathetic to this guy with the parole problem. I think it would have been better if they'd opened a lane for him. The poll shows over 90% agree with you. Yeah, I know. And I'm selecting certain people in chat. Let's calm it down. Leave one lane open. If you want to do a protest, why not choose a lane the tanks aren't in? Just move. Hashhat says, you know, folks, I fucking hate when I'm being given an impractical solution for a very complicated problem. That is exactly what Vosh is doing right here, right now. Dude, just stop oil. Let's import all the shit from China. Hashhat. Take the fucking dick out of your ears. I have not made a single specific prescription this entire time. The prescriptions made by the Just Stop Oil group were don't open any new licenses for oil and gas drilling. That is a very reasonable and specific request right there. That isn't like shut down all oil production right now, ban all cars, let's import everything from China. That's a very straightforward thing to request. I am not making any like ridiculous, economically irrational, you know, takes here. Like, I'm literally just disagreeing with the oil policy of a Tory leader. Is that impractical? Bosch, I agree with you, but the same logic applies to the vegan protest, no, since you can't address climate change while leaving the dairy and meat industry alive. To an extent, I think that's more complicated because the effects of climate change are objectively and universally ethically bad to everyone, but most people's ethics don't care about animals being killed. So I think that attention isn't enough. The argument has to be made. No amount of attention to the vegan thing would be sufficient on its own because people aren't being intuitively pulled to a progressive position on it. It needs to be argued in favor of. So the issue, that's a more complicated issue because you're dealing with like an underlying moral claim, whereas with the climate change stuff, you can just deal with the empirical and most people's moral positions will like do the work for them. But it's complicated. It's complicated. Do you think this is why people like Jimmy Dore, Saagar, Tucker act like they're pro-working class, makes it possible for them to denounce any progressive action by acting like it hurts working people? Yeah. The fake conservative populist grift has always been like, well, I speak for the working class and the working class people don't support gay marriage. You know, they frame progressivism as a kind of like bourgeois liberalism, and the working class people become the silent majority, and the silent majority don't care for your shenanigans. It's a rhetorical reframing that has historically been very effective for reactionaries and fascists. Yeah, they take crypto on their website, but I just think that's a guffaw more than anything. I don't think that speaks to some like underlying evil or whatever. Taking crypto, of course, they're a protest group. They need all the money they can get. I don't agree with them taking crypto, but I don't think that's like some like crypto scam thing. Zoth, I don't think electoralism does nothing. It just doesn't do enough. If I thought electoralism did nothing at all, then I wouldn't advocate for people to go out and vote. I really want you guys to go out and vote. But I am not under the impression that electoralism on its own is capable of solving these issues. If I was, then I wouldn't be a socialist. It is ecological concerns, Ianetris. Vosh, do you care if a single mother misses work or can't pick up a child from school? You're the only one talking in abstracts and hypotheticals. I care if people are harmed. Emma Gold, dude, if you're really going to do this, like, every disruptive protest could, like, prevent a diabetic single mother from reaching the last insulin vial that they have at the limit. Like, you could do this and stop all protests forever. And this is what conservatives do. Conservatives will ignore the meaning of the protest and hyperfixate on any potential harm. Listen, protests, politics is like trying to walk through a forest floor without stepping on any bugs. It's not possible. But there are ways to do less harm, you know? But if you want to, you can always fixate on the harm. We are all bugs. Okay, let me put it this way. You're right. We don't have enough Disco Elysium. Do you guys remember how in Disco Elysium we meet the scab leader and he's talking about protecting the working people? Hold on.
Hello and welcome back to...
No, I don't want... Hold on. I don't want a voiceover. I just want...
Okay, welcome.
Shows authorities are on our side. Builds confidence. Work! Right!
Head taller than everyone else down here.
Here to f with us? Beat the honest worker down? We're here to fight for a cause. Stripes usually have problems with people who have causes.
Okay, then I'm thinking
Good.
no.
We're fighting for a cause here. Right to work! Right to work! Besides, we're not that different. It helps the people see us talking. Cops and strikebreakers together. Shows authorities are on our side.
Basically, this guy is a strikebreaker. He's protesting that the union, which has locked off its facility, is harming working people because they're preventing like people from doing the jobs that need to be done. The union's striking and not doing the job, and the strikebreaker is like, hey, us honest working people, us honest working people are being kept from doing our jobs. Like, we're losing money here. Like, we need to eat. We need to work, you know? The scab leader does not turn out to be a good person. Just saying. He is not actually an honest working man. Like when the firemen went on strike in the UK when I was younger, that hurt people, but they were being actively f***ed over and the strikes were just. Every strike, every protest will f*** innocent people over. Deal with it. Grow up. This isn't a video game. This isn't some like hypothetical where you can construct the optimal political system in your mind. That's life. All change and all status quo harms people.